Elliot Vance had misplaced his datapad again. This was not unusual. He'd misplaced it 17 times this month, a fact the ship's AI liked to announce in increasingly smug tones. But this time, the stakes were higher. The pad contained his half-translated Eliari lexicon, his notes on telepathic dream syntax, and, more urgently, his last ration requisition approval. Without it, he'd be stuck with the communal, beetroot-flavored nutrient slop until the next cycle. Felix, Elliot muttered, crawling beneath a glowing cluster of root cables that pulsed like lazy jellyfish. Where did I last access my datapad? A voice purred over the comms with too much enthusiasm. 22 minutes ago in Corridor E9. Also, congratulations. You are now tied with Commander Brex for most equipment losses this quarter. One more and you get a novelty sash. Find me the datapad and I'll embroider the sash myself, Elliot grumbled. The ship's layout was mostly intuitive, except where it wasn't. Corridor E9, by some warped logic, looped into a restricted quadrant housing Eliari diplomatic quarters, protected by ambiguous protocols Elliot hadn't dared decode. He assumed walking into them would trigger a sonic alarm or an alien guilt ritual involving fermented vapors and shame dancing. Still, he needed that datapad. The ship's caffeine dispensers had been offline for 2 days, and he was one dry socket away from licking the walls for stimulant residue. He tiptoed past the holographic privacy wards, which looked like semi-transparent scarves hung in zero gravity. They shimmered as he passed, emitting a faint tone like a contemplative gong, but no alarms. That should have been his first clue. The chamber beyond was bathed in a gentle teal glow. Air hung still, laced with a scent Elliot couldn't place, somewhere between mint and electric snowfall. He stopped, heart skidding into a confused rhythm. There she was. Lisa Vera stood barefoot on a floating disc, her long ears tilted back in thought. Her robes shimmered with embedded bioluminescence, casting gentle swirls of light across her silver-blue skin. In her hands, she held a small rectangular object, smooth, dark, and familiar. It was his photo. Elliot's breath hitched. Not the flattering one with him looking scholarly and brooding. No, this was the dumb one from last year's interspecies trivia night. He was mid-laugh, holding a juice packet with a bendy straw and wearing a novelty crown labeled emotionally available. He opened his mouth to leave. Run. Reverse. Anything. But her voice stopped him. I often wonder if you know, she murmured softly and in Eliari, her words brushing the air like silk. The resonance you emit, it disrupts my meditation cycles in inconvenient ways. Elliot's hand hovered near the exit panel, but he didn't press it. I, definitely did not know I was emitting. Resonance. She turned. No shock, no embarrassment, just calm acknowledgement, like she'd been expecting him eventually. You dropped this, she said, gesturing toward the floor with a graceful flick of her fingers. At his feet, there it was, the datapad. Nestled beside an ominously ornate box embroidered with swirling silver runes and dear stars embroidered with his initials. He picked it up cautiously. Thanks. I'll just be anywhere but here. I have not completed the emotional resonance ritual, Lisa Vara said. Elliot blinked. Should I stay? Or is that like interrupting someone's mental stretching? You may stay, she said, but do not step on the moss circle. It is emotionally bound to my grandmother's essence. He looked down. Of course there was a moss circle. It glowed slightly and smelled faintly of citrus and elderly disapproval. Got it. No stepping on Grandma. A beat of silence passed between them. She approached slowly, the photo still in hand. This image comforts me. I was drunk on fermented pear squeeze, Elliot said, unable to stop his mouth, and someone photoshopped that crown onto my head. She studied the photo. The crown suits you. Well, he shrugged. It did say emotionally available. Accurate branding, I suppose. Lisa Vara smiled, just slightly. You are unusual. Humans mask affection with deflection. Eliari, do not. You've noticed our charm tactic of awkward jokes and mild self-sabotage. I find it endearing. He scratched his head. Is this your way of flirting, or recruiting me for a psychological study? Both, potentially. The datapad beeped, interrupting the absurd gravity of the moment. A reminder flashed, nutrient slop allotment expiring. He sighed. I should go. The mess hall awaits, and I've got 3 minutes before they rehydrate something that once had political aspirations. She tilted her head. Would you stay for tea? His brain stalled. You mean friendship tea? Neutral acquaintance tea? Or, he hesitated, mating prelude tea? Yes. Oh, stars! Her ears twitched. Your panic is audible. I'm flattered, he said, because it was the only non-desperate response left. And also deeply alarmed. It's a very complicated emotion cocktail. She moved to a tall urn emitting gentle steam. You may relax. It is merely tea. The mating rituals do not commence unless you reciprocate the forehead glyph. Good to know. I'll try not to glyph anything by accident. She handed him a cup. It shimmered slightly and smelled like starlight and vanilla and something unidentifiably spicy. He sipped. He coughed. That's strong. Crushed night buds. They heighten clarity. Mine's heightened all the way into paranoia. She raised her cup in a silent toast. To mutual curiosity. Elliot smiled, trying to find solid ground in the middle of surreal courtship. To mutual confusion. Somewhere the datapad beeped again. He ignored it. Elliot woke up with a start, tangled in his sleep hammock like a cocooned ferret, heart pounding from a dream involving ceremonial drums, wedding chants, and a bouquet that kept whispering, accept her or perish, in his own voice. Felix, he croaked. What was that? You achieved REM Phase 3, followed by stress-induced neural spike. Congratulations. You may now redeem one existential dread coupon. Would you like it gift-wrapped? He rubbed his eyes. Run diagnostic on last sleep cycle. Check for interference. Possibly psychic. Possibly matrimonial. There was a pause, then the AI responded with unhelpful cheer. Brainwave anomalies detected at 0342 ship standard time. Source, non-invasive telepathic contact. Matched Iliari signature. Would you like to file an emotional disturbance report? I'd like to file for emotional asylum, Elliot muttered, rolling out of the hammock and grabbing his robe. I think she mind-whispered me through a dream. Is that even allowed? According to Iliari Cultural Archives, only if mutual resonance thresholds are met. You appear to have met them. I did not meet anything. I tripped into a diplomatic crush, and now she's building our emotional IKEA furniture without asking. He paced the room, pulling up the cultural database and typing in Iliari courtship protocols. The search results were both vast and disturbingly thorough. Subsections like Phase 1, object admiration, Phase 2, emotional encoding via scented teas, and his stomach dropped. Phase 3, dream imprinting and memory infusion. Well, that's not ominous at all, he muttered. Great. So I'm now half married in my sleep. Probably missed the buffet. He scrolled further and found references to a rite called the pre-union resonance cycle, wherein one Iliari chooses a partner by imprinting shared visions of union, which, if unchallenged, are interpreted as tacit approval. If both minds align over several dream states, it progresses to physical bonding rituals. If not, it dissolves with mild telepathic embarrassment and a polite fruit exchange. Felix chimed in again. Incoming message. From Ambassador Lissavara. Text only. Subject line. Phase 2 continues. Wear something breathable. Elliot sighed into his hands. I'm not emotionally equipped for breathable. 10 minutes later, wearing his least crumpled synth linen tunic and trying not to look like a panic-flavored marshmallow, Elliot entered the shared arboretum. The whole room was artificially pollinated with floating spores that shimmered in ultraviolet. He spotted Lysivara seated beneath a humming fruit tree, legs crossed, a small table between them, set with 3 cups and what appeared to be a rock. Why is there a rock? He asked, cautiously sitting. It contains emotional temperature, she said. We place our hands upon it. If it warms, we are aligned. If it vibrates, we require clarity. If it emits the scent of wet fungus, we are incompatible. Elliot blinked. You're kidding. No. The rock hummed faintly. He eyed it with suspicion. Is this rock judging me right now? It observes. It does not judge. Sounds like my mother. They placed their hands on the stone. It glowed faintly, then warmed. Well, that's not fungus. So, yay? Lisa Vera tilted her head. You are amused. This is good. Humor is a sign of emotional elasticity. I'm extremely elastic, like an emotionally confused rubber band. They sat in silence, or rather the kind of psychic silence where she probably scanned every flicker of thought he tried not to have. He focused on the humming fruit, very safe. Not metaphorical, just a fruit that occasionally vibrated. I've been researching your rituals, Elliot said, sipping the tea without asking what was in it. It tasted like flowers and anxiety. Is this really how you guys do it? The bonding thing? Dream stalking and rock touching? Her ears lifted slightly. It is sacred. Our ancestors shared no written language, only resonance. Emotion was language. We have texting and memes. Some of them are sacred too. She reached across and touched the edge of his cup, a subtle gesture that made the air between them seem to fold slightly. You are frightened, she said, but curious. I'm a scientist, Elliot replied. Curiosity is what gets me into trouble. Also what got me banned from the Xenobiology Masquerade Ball last year. Long story involving tentacle prosthetics. You do not need to decide today. I'd rather not get married by accident tonight either. She gave what he now recognized as an Eliari smile, subtle, slow, just a shift in the corner of her mouth and an extra glow behind the eyes. There will be signs, she said. Like what? You will begin to sense my emotions without translation. You may develop cravings for unfamiliar herbs. You might hear my thoughts in moments of quiet. He stared at her. That's not creepy at all. You will know it is working, she said, when you smell the flowers I haven't brought. There was a beat of silence. I'm going to need a chart. The rock vibrated, a faint scent of citrus and... Was that cinnamon? Elliot stood abruptly. Okay, I think we've hit emotional capacity for today. I need a cold shower, maybe a memory scrub. Lisa Vera stood as well, offering a small pouch. These herbs will ease the dream convergence. He took it warily. They won't make me dream of wedding suits made of moss again, right? No promises? As he turned to go, she added, Tomorrow is the resonance walk. I will bring a second rock. Twice the judgment, twice the clarity. He walked out muttering, I should have studied mushrooms instead. Elliot stood in front of the mirror, staring at what could only be described as a ceremonial onesie. It was pearlescent, covered in shimmering data thread embroidery that changed color depending on his pulse. Currently, it was flashing orange, which, according to the Eliari Cultural Index, translated loosely to mild dread with a side of stomach churn. He tugged at the collar. Felix, he hissed, why does this outfit make me look like I'm about to be offered as tribute to a god who eats emotions? It's traditional, the AI responded. The shifting hues indicate sincerity, and your butt looks phenomenal. That's not comforting. I didn't say it was meant to be. The so-called resonance walk was scheduled for 0800 hours, and Elliot still had no idea what that entailed. The only clues came from a hastily translated Eliari footnote that said, participants must be emotionally porous, spiritually attuned, and not allergic to photonic lichen. He was 90% sure he was at least one of those things. By the time he reached the designated convergence hall, he found Lisa Vera waiting beside a slow-turning, spiraled platform covered in a living carpet of moss and bioluminescent vines. She had brought not one, but two rocks, each labeled in elegant glyphs, Heart Truth and Spare. You look radiant, she said, tilting her head as he stepped onto the platform. I look like a holographic jelly bean, he muttered, stepping carefully around a twitching vine. Jelly bean? Never mind. Ancient earth delicacy. Comes in a variety of regrettable flavors. The platform began to rotate, slowly, meditatively, and then, quite suddenly, it accelerated to a pace that made Elliot stagger slightly. Is this normal? Yes, she said. The spin represents the orbit of joined souls. It intensifies resonance. It's also going to intensify my lunch if we keep going. She handed him one of the rocks. Focus your emotion into the stone. I feel mostly dizzy and confused. That will do. As they walked the platform spiral, a low thrumming sound filled the air. Not music exactly, more like an atmospheric pressure fluctuation with opinions. Elliot felt the hairs on his arms rise. Then a whisper, not heard but felt, brushed his mind like a memory with bad boundaries. Are you open? The thought echoed, not in his voice, not hers either, but something blended, like a duet performed by their future anxieties. Did you hear that? He asked aloud. She nodded. Phase 3 is beginning. Emotional entanglement. That sounds romantic and legally binding. It is neither. Yet, he tried focusing on the rock. He thought of her smile, her calm, the way she always offered tea with two hands like it was sacred. He also thought about the weird bouquet from his dream that kept chanting wedding chants at a snail's pace. Unhelpfully, the rock in his palm warmed. That's not encouraging, he muttered. It means your thoughts are aligned. Well, then I apologize to your ancestors for whatever images just passed through my mind. The platform slowed. She faced him. Do you wish to see my vision? Is there a waiver I should sign first? She didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hand gently over his eyes. The world folded. Suddenly, he wasn't on the ship anymore. He was standing on a crystalline beach with stars turning overhead in slow loops. Two moons watched from the sky like eyes full of sentimental judgment. Beside him, her, dressed not in robes, but in something woven from the same light the sky spilled. He could feel her emotion, not as words but as pressure, gentle, consistent, deliberate, longing, affection, hope. He didn't just sense her feelings, he experienced them, like stepping into someone else's memories. Then he saw her memory of him, the first moment she'd seen him, fumbling with a universal translator, muttering to himself, face half covered in juice from a rogue snack dispenser, malfunction. And yet to her, he had shone with a kind of chaotic sincerity. Wait, he said aloud in the vision. That's the moment? That's when you started? She nodded in the vision. You offered to repair my translator with a spoon and sheer willpower. It was a good spoon. She laughed, light, honest, strange. The beach dissolved. They were back on the platform. The moss rustled in approval. That's a lot, Elliot said, blinking. You Eliari really don't believe in emotional buffering, do you? It is inefficient, she replied. He sat down heavily on the edge of the platform. I need a snack. She produced one. A small fruit, warm and slightly humming. Of course you have snacks, he muttered, chewing cautiously. Do all your courtship rituals involve this level of surreal intimacy and digestive challenges? It is customary to include symbolic nourishment. It tastes like apple and vague commitment. Appropriate. The lights dimmed as the resonance session ended. Crew members filtered in to reset the platform. No one spoke directly to them, but several passed with knowing glances. One technician gave Elliot a subtle thumbs up. Another winked and whispered, Congrats on your maybe wife. He groaned. This is getting out of hand. Not yet, she said. Tomorrow is the alignment spa. What does that involve? Hot stones? Emotional nudity? Sentient clay masks? She paused. You will see. Felix, he whispered as they walked off the platform, start prepping my escape plan. Already did, the AI responded. Spoiler, it ends with you married and wearing another glowing onesie. Figures. The spa was not what Elliot expected. For one thing, it floated. Suspended mid-atrium in a gravity-neutral chamber, the Iliari alignment spa resembled a massive glass droplet drifting gently above a pool of swirling light. He was escorted in by two attendants wearing gowns that whispered when they moved, possibly because they were woven from nano-threaded whisper silk, or possibly because they had opinions about his haircut. Inside, the spa was warm and glowing, filled with diffused light and the low-frequency hum of cellular harmonization. Elliot had no idea what that meant, but the brochure promised mild transcendence, skin renewal, and emotional detoxification through targeted quantum misting. Felix's voice chimed in his earpiece. Caution, participants have reported spontaneous weeping, memory recollection, and in one case, laughter so intense it ruptured a minor organ. Great, Elliot muttered. Exactly the vibe I was going for. Punctured spleen through giggle therapy. A robed LERI guide handed him a towel, a translucent robe that felt like a sigh when he put it on, and a small card labeled Emotive Flux Profile, Novice Level, Moderate Resistance to Intimacy. He tried to discreetly turn it over. Too late. Le Savara entered. She wore a robe similar to his, but somehow managed to look like a meditating goddess who moonlighted as a galactic diplomat. She inclined her head. I see your flux profile was accurate. Moderate resistance is generous, Elliot said. I once ducked behind a vending machine to avoid eye contact with someone who said, "Good morning," too confidently. She gestured toward the floating center pool, which was slowly rotating. This is the core bath. It reads your psychic field and matches it with ambient emotional frequencies. We enter it together. He looked at the bath. It's glowing. Yes. Is it going to read my deepest insecurities and display them like space karaoke? It may echo fragments. Neat. I hope it skips the bit with my 7th grade drama audition. Still have nightmares. They entered together. The fluid wasn't exactly liquid. It was like being suspended in memory. As they floated, gentle pulses moved through the chamber, and with each pulse, Elliot felt something lift from him. A thought, a memory, a tension. Then came the echoes. A shimmer formed overhead, projecting a moment from his past. He winced. It was the day he'd been rejected from the Advanced Xenolinguistics Institute because he'd accidentally submitted his lunch receipt instead of his research abstract. Lisavara watched silently. Look, Elliot muttered, it was an honest mistake. The panini was exceptional. More pulses, another image. Elliot, in his early 20s, fumbling through a first date, enthusiastically describing neural interface theory until his companion pretended to choke just to escape. I'm sensing a theme, he said. You fear being misunderstood, she said softly. You fill silence with words to stay afloat. I also enjoy the sound of my own voice. It's a survival instinct. Her image began to appear next. Memories from her childhood, a still field beneath 3 moons, a solemn ritual involving floating stones. Her face as a young girl watching an older Iliari drift away into the starlight. Then a moment, her watching Elliot from across the ship's conference deck. The day he made a joke about the ambassador's cape doubling as a makeshift solar sail. You laughed, he said, surprised. Internally, you Iliari really know how to bottle it in. We preserve laughter for the most precise moments. Another pulse surged through the fluid. Elliot felt his chest tighten, not from pressure but from the flood of clarity. For the first time, he wasn't just experiencing her memories, he was inside them. He saw himself through her eyes, not as awkward, but as warm, not clumsy, but unfiltered, sincere. I didn't know I was being watched, he whispered. Your resonance touched mine before I could prepare for it. I felt it echo. I preserved it. I can't decide if that's poetic or terrifying. Both. Like all first connections. They floated in silence. The fluid hummed softly around them. For a long while, neither spoke. Then, Lisa Vera, Elliot said slowly, I'm still overwhelmed. I do not wish to bind you unwillingly. The ritual progresses only by mutual inclination. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying my brain still defaults to flailing panic as a love language. That is acceptable. The bath began to dim. The session ended. As they stepped out, a technician handed them each a warm towel and what appeared to be a congratulatory mineral. Is this edible? Elliot asked. No, Lisavara said. It's symbolic. It represents aligned intention. Good, I nearly bit mine. They returned to the corridor, robes trailing faint iridescence. Elliot glanced sideways at her. You know, you're the only person who's ever gotten me to willingly relive my lunch receipt trauma in high definition. Then we are bonded. That's deeply alarming. You may still flee. Give me one more panic attack and I just might propose instead. She paused, her ears twitching. You are joking. Mostly. The lights flickered. Felix's voice cut in, tone suddenly sharp. Elliot, emergency protocol. Intrusion detected on deck 6. External breach confirmed. Unknown vessel latched onto the hull. Status, hostile. Lisa Vera immediately straightened. I must respond. Elliot was already pulling on his standard gear. Right behind you. He stopped. Wait. Does this count as a date? She handed him a plasma baton. Only if we survive. Romantic. The emergency klaxons echoed through the ship's corridors like a tone-deaf opera singer who didn't know when to leave the stage. Elliot ran behind Lisa Vera, ducking under flickering ceiling panels and hopping over a maintenance bot that chirped, "Run for your lives, meatbags," before short-circuiting into a dramatic pirouette. Deck 6 was already sealed off. The hull sensors showed a foreign vessel latched onto their airlock like a parasitic tick with an attitude problem. Crew scrambled around them, some securing the medical bay, others attempting to reboot the diplomatic firewall that had apparently been disabled by what Felix referred to as one very rude line of alien code. "We're being jammed," Felix reported. "Communications are reduced to interpretive dance and blinking lights." "Then we're doomed," Elliot muttered, "because my interpretive dance is just flailing and regret." Lisa Vera touched the panel and closed her eyes. Her ears pulsed gently. "I am reaching the intrusion signal telepathically. It is a faction opposed to interspecies bonding. They believe our resonance ceremonies corrupt cultural identity." "Of course they do," Elliot sighed. "Nothing says classic villainy like aggressively enforcing emotional boundaries." The airlock hissed. Elliot and Lisa Vera stood side by side, plasma batons humming as the outer hatch slid open. The intruders entered, tall, armored figures with matching scowls and zero chill. One stepped forward, a broad-shouldered Eliari with ceremonial tattoos and a voice that sounded like it had been aged in judgment. "You dishonor our lineage," he said, gesturing at Lisa Vera. "You blur the sacred resonance with off-world noise." "Hi," Elliot waved. "Off-world noise here. I also make a mean lentil stew." The Eliari warrior didn't blink. "You will end the pre-union now, or we will." Lisa Vera remained calm. "You fear change, but resonance is not erosion. It is expansion." "That was beautiful," Elliot whispered. "Also, are we going to die?" "Not if we are aligned." "I'm emotionally rubbery at best." She stepped forward. "I claim this resonance. Stand down or witness its full power." The intruders moved. In the chaos that followed, Elliot discovered several things. 1. Plasma batons are much heavier than they look. 2. Eliari warriors do not respond well to sarcasm during hand-to-hand combat. 3. When Lisa Vera resonated at full capacity, the air itself vibrated with such force that time seemed to hiccup. A wave pulsed out from her, not just sound or light, but raw emotion, clarity, unity, protectiveness, something deeper and older than speech. It hit the intruders like a silent roar. They staggered, faltered, then dropped to one knee, not in surrender, but in stunned recognition. Lisa Vera turned to Elliot. "You amplified it." "I what now?" "Our bond. It carried through." Felix's voice returned to the comms, tinny and sheepish. "Good news. Intruders incapacitated, slightly dazed, mildly weepy, but otherwise unharmed. Also, you've received 37 congratulatory messages from the crew. One includes confetti." Elliot leaned against the wall, panting. "Tell them I'm registering an official complaint about this being the weirdest first courtship I've ever been conscripted into." Later, after the intruders were escorted off-ship with mildly embarrassed apologies and herbal snacks, Elliot sat on the observation deck, wrapped in a thermal blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and cosmic responsibility. Lisa Vera sat beside him, silent as always until he turned to face her. "So," he said, "I fought off xenophobic extremists, accidentally enhanced a psychic bond, and may have emotionally broadcasted my inner monologue like a radio soap opera. Yes. And you still want to continue this resonance thing?" She touched her forehead to his gently. "You are transparent. It is a strength." He exhaled. "I thought it was just social incompetence." "Same thing." They laughed. He took her hand. "Okay," he said. "Let's do this. Slowly. Human slow. And maybe with fewer plasma weapons next time." She nodded. "We shall prepare the ceremonial tea. I'll bring snacks, something crunchy, to ground us." In the days that followed, their union became something of a diplomatic phenomenon. Articles were written. Treaties were updated to include emotional safety clauses. A statue was commissioned on Eliari Prime. Though, according to Felix, the artist took some liberties and gave Elliot an extra ear for symmetry. The crew eventually stopped calling him Ambassador's husband. Mostly, he received a new title, Cultural Liaison Mate. He wore it proudly, even when the robe it came with tried to strangle him mid-ceremony. But something had shifted. Elliot no longer filled silence with panic. He no longer feared the mirror of another mind. He had touched resonance, seen himself reflected through alien eyes, and found something worth leaning into instead of away from. And sometimes in the quiet between stars, he'd hear her whisper, a thought not meant to be spoken. You are home. And for once, he had no need to run.